I want to talk a little bit about how I do what I do. I get asked a lot about that very thing. How do you do what you do? You can't possibly be able to do what you do. You can't possibly know everything you know, all of that. So how do I do what I do? People go, oh, you're so psychic. No. I am not psychic at all. I certainly would say I am intuitive. I would say that I know cultural anthropology and history really well, and I've studied psychology a lot. I would say that I know my symbols, and in fact, that's what I think I do. I think that I draw upon Carl Jung's work on archetypes and interpretation of symbols in order to be able to read. That's really what I do. I do the same thing with palm readings as I do with card readings. I look at the symbols and I tell the story that symbol to symbol it tells me to tell. And that's one of the things that I think readers don't think about or talk about very often. It's that we are storytellers because we have to take a whole bunch of disparate elements that often make no sense whatsoever because the symbols don't necessarily relate, and we have to come up with the tale that threads through all of them. And that's the way I do it anyway. I think of myself probably more as an intuitive communicator rather than a reader nowadays because I'm trying to tell the client, the person getting the reading, the story I see, the thread I see in the cards or in their palm. And I want to show you something that I've been doing a lot of thinking about, actually. Do I have everything? I think I do. Okay, so the tarot cards are kind of the, in many ways, the precursor, if you will, of the modern day playing deck, right? So you have kings and queens and tens and nines, the pip cards and all of that. The card I wanted to see. And let's say we have something like the Seven of Cups. You see in the card that there are 7 cups, and in the cups are rainbows and dragons and fairies, and there's somebody about to choose one of the cups. Okay, now what's interesting about this is that, let me see if I can find it, the tarot corresponds very nicely to the regular playing deck. The cups are the suit of hearts. So correspondent to the 7 of Cups is the 7 of Hearts. Those are the two that relate to one another. And here's how I know that. Let me show you something. So here's what's interesting about this deck. It's a Spanish card, Spanish playing cards. Notice, if you will, that you have 7 of Hearts. You've got 7 of Cups, the same configuration, but these are cups. They aren't hearts. And they actually are a lot like the 7 of Cups in the tarot. And you can do the same thing for, let's see, here we go. Let's see if I can find real quickly. All right, we'll do 8 of Rods. Can I find them quickly? Of course not. Pish tosh, you wanted something to go quick? It's not going to happen. Okay, we'll go with, let's say, 6. So instead of clubs like in the regular playing deck, it's 6 of rods or clubs like this, right? So when you have the 6 of clubs here, or the 9 or whatever, you're looking at these kinds of clubs, but a club or a rod like this, and then is it possible for me to find the 6 of rods easily and quickly? No. Yes, look at that. 6 of rods. So they're actually all related to one another. I don't know if you can see them. Isn't that cool? They're all related to one another one way or another. And the suits in the Spanish deck are actually the same suits as in the tarot, even though they're shaped, the actual symbols that are on them are like regular playing decks. So you have cups, rods, coins, and swords, right? So you have, let's see, cups, rods, coins, and swords. Those are the symbols on the Spanish cards. Similar to, let's see, cups, coins, rods, where are my swords? I need a sword, 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 sword. Of course there aren't any to be found. Where's the rest of my deck? Oh, they're right here. Isn't it amazing how whenever you need something like this, it doesn't show up? Aha, swords. Here we go. So now, same kind of thing as you see in the Spanish deck. So the Spanish deck is sort of the intermediary between them. So the symbols have been around for a really long time, and they've evolved over time into the regular playing deck. And when I actually first learned to read, I learned to read with a regular playing deck. It was not until I was a teenager that I found the tarot and went, wait a minute, these symbols are familiar, and started interpreting the symbols here, and then studied a lot of psychology and communication in order to be able to do it. So if you ever wonder how readers do what they do, or at least how I do what I do, now you have a better idea. Think of me as a storyteller, as someone who looks at the symbols and is able to tell a story based on the thread. And one of the things that happens, of course, is sometimes you have to talk about some pretty challenging stuff. People who have suffered abuse, people who have lost loved ones. And by the way, I'm not a medium. I don't talk to dead people. I interpret symbols, right? So, but still, when the cards tell you that part of the story, you end up having to address it. You have to address what you see, and sometimes it's challenging. So when I'm in a situation like that, the big thing that I have to know how to do is communicate. Sometimes it's not an easy tale to tell, and it's still my responsibility to tell it, and to tell it in such a way that it will be helpful to the person who's hearing the story. Okay, so I just wanted to sort of clear that up for you all. If you have any questions about that, definitely get in touch and ask away, because I'm fascinated by symbols. I'm fascinated by the stories we can tell, and the stories we've been telling, from around bonfires 20,000 years ago or whatever, however long ago we started telling our tales and coming up with our myths and our archetypes, all the way to today when people are communicating in one form or another on the internet. We're still telling stories. This just happens to be a method through which I can tell a particular story.